Senator Rubio, thank you for being here and welcome today. And also I noticed that Florida has 56% of all the recorded cases in all the country, 56%.
That's correct. Thank you for having this hearing. And, you know, it's an issue that predates my service here. I've been here less than a year now, but during my time in the state legislature, we saw a lot about it. And Ms. Brinku, thank you for being here, for all your activism on behalf of Floridians who have been affected by this all over the state. We've been hearing about this for years now, particularly after '04 and '05 with the rebuilding boom. I wanted to ask you something, and you may have touched upon it already. I know it's in your statement because I read it. And it talks about credit and the impact that this has on people's personal credit ratings. And you may have discussed this already, and if you have, I apologize, I was a little late. But the changes you've had to make, but also other people have had to make in their lives, have had to leave their homes behind, have had to find secondary places to live, sometimes have fallen behind on their payments. I don't know if that's the case with you, but talk a little bit, if you could, with us about the impact that this has had on the credit rating of victims who have suffered from this and are now trying to recuperate some of that.
It's had an enormous impact on the victims. For 27 years, my husband and I had never missed a payment in our lives. We'd always be on time. We had impeccable credit. And our over 800 credit score went down to 500. Just the simple thing of credit cards, having a credit card. We no longer have credit cards. We no longer are able to obtain credit. By the time we get to court, we will owe $80,000 in back payments and interest and penalties from our Wells Fargo. So it's, for all the victims, it's had an enormous impact. People that had their houses paid off, it's devastated them because a lot of them live on fixed incomes. People that have, like Colleen behind me, she had, you know, over $1 million home, had $800,000 credit. Equity in her home, and now she's, you know, short selling this Friday. So what is this still going to do to her, you know, for her credit rating? On top of, you know, when you go to apply for a job, if you claim bankruptcy, all these things having a huge impact on, you know, our job, our finances, I mean, everything. And my grandfather had always told me, put your money in your house because it's always a safe investment. So I took my entire IRA and put it in my home. So not only have I lost my home, I've lost my IRA, I've lost all my savings. I had stuck $150,000 into my home, so I had equity, didn't have, and now, you know, it's gone.
And I asked that question because there's so much. I know you're a victim of domestic drywall,
yes.
but the one we hear a lot about is the Chinese drywall, and so we have limits into what we can do to reach these manufacturers. I mean, and the folks overseas. One of the things we can do something about is what you're talking about, and that is the credit rating of individuals that have been directly impacted, because you can leave the home, you can move away from the drywall, but the credit rating issue will follow you for
the rest of our lives.
Well, at least for 7 years, whatever the time frame is. But it just takes forever to rebuild it, and quite frankly, there's things we can do about that. And I know you've been talking about that with Senator Nelson before I got here to the Senate, and it's something we want to work together on with everybody in this panel, because I think it's one of the things we can do something about immediately. You touched upon something else, which is short sales and transactions, and this. I kind of talking to you now because I see you become an advocate on behalf of other people in the state that have suffered this. One of the things I'm concerned about, and maybe you can touch upon it, is that some homes are being sold, or people are now buying homes without full disclosure of what they're getting their hands on. And have you heard? I mean, how many of your victims are actually people that bought homes from either a contractor, or, you know, a builder, or another homeowner who basically dumped it on them without disclosing? How much of a problem has that been in terms of the non-disclosure issue?
There's just so many victims that have told me and shared their stories. I've had cases where I had somebody go over and watch a house be remediated, and they took ketchup and cleaned the wires. I've had, I mean, right here, this wire, it's gone all the way through. And if I cannot remove the wiring from my home, I will not move back in. You can guarantee that. I will not. You have not had alarms go off in the middle of the night with your children wondering, is there a fire? Is there not? I mean, all my things have turned yellow. It's affected all the appliances in my home. You know, and so we are worried about the health and safety issue of this. It's a very big concern, and the thing of that, it's not being disclosed, and people are remediating, and there's no set guidelines of how the remediation is going to take place. You have people that are remediating for as little as $6,000, just flipping the drywall, or even patching up. I've heard of, them patching up the drywall, and they ain't tearing the drywall out. One homeowner in California, they did that to her home. They patched it up and put it back on the market and put some new carpet in it. A lot of times they're taking the air conditioning out, and so the banks are taking the air conditioning out that's bad, and then leaving everything else alone. So when a homeowner, the first thing they're going to check is what? The AC coils. When they see the AC coils is not a problem, then they say, okay, there's not a problem in the home. And they may not pay for an inspection, or the inspector doesn't catch it, or not more educated in the area. So these are all things that we see constantly, every day, that the homeowners this has happened to.
And that's my last point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And one of your complaints, and I think rightfully so, I read it in your statement, was that many of these studies that are coming out on the safety and effectiveness have not been peer-reviewed, or have not been looked at and compared to. But I know you have some specific asks with regards to that, and how the opinion of some that it's okay to move back into some of these homes after certain things are done, you're saying is not enough, that in fact, and you just highlighted it, you're not moving back into a home as long as this faulty wiring is there, no matter how many reports come out that say otherwise. How prevalent of a concern is that among folks?
It's very concerning. I mean, I've heard it over and over. If these homes are not properly remediated, they will not move back in. And the homes are so upside down. Before all this happened, our home wasn't an upside down. We had equity in it. And so that's an enormous concern. And for the amount that it's like 5% to fix the wiring and take it out, why not? Well, why in 40 years? Who is going to be here to check those wiring? For the next families that are coming in, the average homeowner lives in the house for 7 years. So who's going to keep passing that information that needs to be changed?
Thank you again for the work you're doing on this issue, and I hope we can be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thanks.